Hi everyone, welcome to video 5. Thanks for clicking on the video. I guess I'll start this one off with, there's a saying, old men sit and talk about the weather and old women sit and talk about old men. I know at least half of that is true. I've been talking about the weather a lot lately. We've had a pretty wild ride the last week or so. Last week we actually had a few days where it didn't get above freezing, which is good. Things were really starting to freeze up good, all the mud and everything else. Well then, starting over the weekend, we had a huge windstorm, even exceptional by Lithuanian standards, and we get a lot of wind here. It was a bad one. Basically for about three and a half days, I think starting on about Saturday afternoon, we had constant sustained winds of, I think it was around 60 kilometers an hour, 40 miles per hour. But, and when I say constant, I mean, it never let up. It howled for days. But amongst all of that sustained wind, we had a lot of gusts up to 100 kilometers an hour. I think that's around 65 miles per hour, which again, it's nothing like a tornado, but when you get a lot of those, it creates havoc. So there was a lot of damage. A lot of the Christmas trees that had been set up in city centers or the market square, some of these bigger ones, got knocked over, which is to be expected. Even our neighbor's greenhouse took some damage, a few panels broken or smashed out. I haven't even been out to the forest yet. I would imagine there's going to be a lot of trees down out there in the roads and trails that I use, so probably the next time I head out there, I won't bring the camera. I'll probably just bring a chainsaw and some hand tools just to kind of clear out my travel areas, paths, trails, etc. But, to continue with the weather, actually back in Wisconsin right now, it's quite cold. And then I see even today, which I think is December 19th, so Christmas is coming up, but they're actually getting some proper snow. They've had kind of a roller coaster ride weather-wise, but it looks like winter has set in Wisconsin, but not here. In fact, nothing really in the forecast. We're staying basically in, just above zero, like in Fahrenheit, I guess in the 30s during the day and around freezing at night, but which is a big change from last year. Last year at this time, we had a lot of snow. We had a proper winter last year in December and November. In fact, my wife and I went to Italy for a vacation last year, and we got back here in late November, and we barely got into our driveway. There was so much snow. It was a lot, and I had mentioned in previous videos that I've got a snow plow for my ATV. I only use it when we really get a lot of snow, and I used it a lot last year. Same thing with the snow blower. I'll talk and show a little bit more about that later in the video, but the plow and the snow blower, I only use if we get a big dump of snow. Generally, I just use a shovel or whatever. But a big change from last year. Again, as with anywhere, it's not just Lithuania. You just don't know what you're going to get anymore. We don't need to get into the whole global warming thing, but things are definitely changing, it seems, globally. Even Wisconsin last year, I was back there for a quick visit this fall and talking to my brother-in-law, and he said that they didn't even open the snowmobile trails in Wisconsin last year. They just basically didn't have a winter, didn't have enough snow to allow the snow machines out there. So it happens everywhere, but for people like me who do like winter, it's a bit of a letdown, but I did manage to get out and get a few chores done during all this madness. I'm still working on clearing brush out of that ditch. I think I had shown that in a video, I don't know, 1 or 2 episodes ago, but I'm nearing the end with that, which is good because the ditch is now full of water and it's usually got about an inch of ice on it, or if not ice, it's ice cold water. Good thing I've got some insulated rubber boots. But you can see me looking at a list here. I want to make sure that I talk about all the things that I need to talk about here rather than stopping the video and starting it. But so I think after I'm done talking here, I'll start showing some videos and or pictures from my archives. And when I say my archives, I really mean my wife's archives. Until I started this YouTube channel, I didn't take pictures, I didn't take videos. I was not that kind of person. Luckily my wife did. She's constantly taking pictures and videos. So I kind of had to look through her archives to come up with some stuff. So when I'm done talking here, I'll show some, like I said, pictures and videos of last winter and previous winters when we do have proper winter here. Hopefully you'll get a kick out of that. I also plan to talk about, or show you, I should say, our dog Pippa. I've been mentioning Pippa, and maybe you saw a video or a picture or two of her in past videos, but she's a big part of our lives. Basically, a few years ago, in fact, she's going to be 3 years old soon, so we've had her pretty much that whole time. Of course, my wife says, let's get a dog, let's get a dog. I didn't want to get a dog. There's still times where I wish we didn't have a dog, but of course, as you know how things go, she kind of got her way, and I was kind of like, well, you know, if we got to get a dog, let's get a rescue dog or something from a shelter or whatever. Not one of these tiny little designer yippy ankle biter dogs. Well, she wanted one of these tiny little designer yippy ankle biter dogs, so she got her way. So we ended up with a little Yorkshire Terrier. Technically, it's not a Yorkshire Terrier. It's what's called a Beaver Terrier. It's the same as a Yorkshire Terrier, but it just has, I think, one extra color in it, and it turns to white or gray when it gets older. But anyhow, we ended up with this little dog, Pippa. And all that being said about, and I still agree with what I said, you know, I'm not a big fan of these designer dogs. A lot of them come from, you know, puppy mills. They're, again, usually yippy little ankle biters, which I've never really had much time for. There's plenty of good dogs in the shelters that people can adopt. But anyhow, we ended up with Pippa. And all that being said, she is probably the most wonderful dog I've ever been around. She's probably the most gentle creature I've ever been around. She's really a good dog. Not a yippy little thing. In fact, she didn't even use her voice till she was about a year old. We were actually wondering if there was something wrong with her. She didn't make a sound. Well, then she found her voice, and now she barks a little bit, but only when she needs to. She's a good little watchdog. If there's somebody out on the road or somebody she doesn't know, she'll let us know something's there. So that part's good. She's certainly not an ankle biter. She's very, very well behaved. In fact, there's a few restaurants around here that we're allowed to bring her in, and people don't even know she's there. She's really good. She was really easy to house train. She doesn't chew on anything around here. She's just a wonderful dog, and I guess suffice to say I've grown quite attached to her. But she is a tiny little thing. She doesn't fit in where we live very well. Where we live, it's, you know, dirt roads, a lot of mud, a lot of things that aren't a good fit with having a little dog. There's fox. I'll show, I think later in this video, I've got some trail cam footage of a fox, and we have a lot of fox around here. And fox would gladly take her from us. There's a lot of big dogs kind of running loose around here. Some of them aren't very friendly. Wood ticks, you name it. So she fits in here, out here in our little neighborhood about as well as high-heeled shoes. But she makes it work. For as tiny and delicate as she looks, she's tough as nails. She's been through a lot, but she puts up with a lot. That being said, as tiny and delicate as she is tiny and delicate. And we've had a few, I don't want to say close calls, but you know, things that have happened One, it didn't really happen as such, but we chose to have her spayed or neutered. I don't know which one it is, but sterilized so she can't have puppies. And we chose to do that by recommendation from several people and researching online to do it around 6 or 8 months old. I kind of thought that was a little early, but a lot of the experts said, no, that's fine, do it before they're a year old. So we did it. And she made it through the operation or the procedure just fine, but when we brought her home, she was really in bad shape. It nearly broke my heart to see how weak, and she was still under the anesthesia for several hours, but for several days she was really in a lot of pain. But she took it like a trooper. There have been other things that have happened. About a year, she has off and on some digestive problems. About a year ago or less than a year ago, it got really bad where we had to actually take her in a couple times for an IV. She, couldn't eat, and if she did eat, she couldn't keep it down. Everything was going through her. And in fact, that second time we took her for an IV to the vet, and the veterinary hospital here is wonderful. They're really good people. But the second time, I honestly thought we were going to lose her. She was really poorly. She was in really bad shape, and we were trying to figure out what was causing it, and we still don't really know. We've always fed her good quality food, but as the vets say, we're out here in the countryside, who knows what she gets into. Maybe she ate something, we don't really know. But we did switch to a new kind of food. This is probably way more information than you guys care about, but anybody that has a little dog with digestive problems might be interested. But we bought some special food. It's basically freeze-dried, raw food. You can get rabbit, you can get beef, you can get chicken, whatever, I think all the different varieties. We actually have to have it shipped in from the UK. It's not real cheap, but where I'm going with this, it seems since we switched to that, she's been good. She's really hasn't had any problems. I don't know if it was the food. We'll continue to monitor it, but I did mention she'll be 3 years old soon. She weighs about 3 kilograms, which in pounds is just maybe 6.5 pounds, around there. So she's not real good, but she's also not one of those tiny ones. Again, you'll see a little bit more later in this video. You'll see some pictures and some videos of her. I did want to also say, again, she's such a good dog. I'm going on and on about the dog. She's really clever for her size, considering her brain is about the size of a walnut. She really is clever. We don't need a leash or a collar. We go walking. She listens to us. She stays by our side. She never runs away. We do have the fence, which I've mentioned in other videos, and we don't really need it to keep her in. Quite often, especially in the summer, we just leave the big car gate wide open. She can come and go as she wants, but she doesn't leave. She knows to stay on, in the yard. But the fence is mainly helpful for keeping the bad things out. I mentioned earlier, fox and dogs and everything else. And honestly, I know if a fox wants to get in, they're going to get in, but the fence at least makes them have to work for it. And speaking of the dog, last story about the dog, I promise. And the fence, I think it was this past spring. I looked out the window and I said, oh, there's a deer in the yard. And I'll get into that more in another video, but here they're called steerna. It's kind of like a mix between a white-tailed deer and an antelope. I mean, the body itself looks like a white-tailed deer. It's smaller, and the hind end doesn't have a tail at all. That's why I said it kind of looks like an antelope. But anyhow, I said, oh, there's a deer in the yard. And, the first thing that occurred to me is, how did it get in? We did have the car gate open, but I don't know if he would come through there. He must have jumped the fence. But anyways, the moment that Pippa saw this deer basically on her property, she went a little bit crazy. So she's chasing this deer all around the yard, and it's bashing into the fences and bashing into things. And it was a buck. It was still in velvet. You could see some of the velvet hanging off. I won't get into the gory details, but eventually the deer or the steer had the sense to just jump the fence. But it was a pretty crazy few minutes while Pippa was chasing that deer around, but had no fear at all. What else do I have on here? Oh, about Pippa. Also, she doesn't shed. You'll see a hair or two every once in a while, and she doesn't have this dandruff, which essentially means she's hypoallergenic. So there's a lot of reasons to get one of these tiny little designer dogs, but again, it all worked out. She's wonderful. You'll see more about her later. I think that's pretty much it for now. I'll transition to some of the other videos and pictures that I've got, but Christmas is coming up. I'm sure I probably won't get another video out before Christmas, and possibly, maybe New Year's, but if I don't put one out before then, I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season, i.e. Christmas, if that's what you celebrate. But that's it for me on this end. I'll keep you posted on the weather and everything else. Thanks for watching.
As I mentioned, today is December 19th, which is almost the winter solstice, otherwise known as the shortest day of the year. I think we're down to about 6.5 hours of daylight. So that should start increasing here in a week or so. But you can see how low in the sky the sun is, and really that's about as high as it gets this time of year. That's looking straight south. Obviously, it comes up in the far southeast and it sets shortly thereafter in the far southwest, but that's about as high in the sky as it gets. Ignore all of the molehills in the lawn. I'll talk about that in some other video. As mentioned, I do have a snow blower and, of course, a snow plow for my ATV, but I really only use those if we get a big dump of snow or if it's about the second week of daily snows. But generally, I'm perfectly happy using an old-fashioned shovel. And just to wrap things up, here's a couple quick clips of some fox that I catch on my trail cams. See you next time, guys.